Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, welcome all the devotees to our continuation of Ram Katha today. So, we have been doing the series since a long time. Um, in fact, last Sunday also at Satyaputra Prabhu's house, we had done part of the series itself. Um, this is basically the 18 meanings of Ramayana as learnt by Sripad Ramanujacharya from his maternal uncle Sri Shaila Purna. So the 18 meanings have been summarized in the verse that I have put up here. We will take two meanings today. So I'll just read this verse. Sattvam hitam purushakara pumartha sheshya kashtartha panchakam akinchana deshalabha sartartha vartana nivasana samudvayartha ashastrojana vyasana shashti kala jayarthaha. So the 18 lessons from the Ramayana as learned by Sripad Ramanujacharya were about Tattvam, Hitam, Sharanagati, Purushakara, recommendation of goddess of fortune, Pumartha, service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shaishya, Sheshatvam, having no independent existence, like Lakshmana, Paratantriyam, complete obedience, like Bharata, Kashtha, Bhagavat Paratantriya, like Shatrughna, Artha Panchakam, various characteristics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Akinchanatvam, nothing other than you, O Lord, like Vibhishan. So if you remember last time we had looked at 8 and 9. Ishalabha, importance of Acharya. So these first 10 are done. These 8 are remaining currently. Kartartyam, role of one's endeavor. Vartanam, importance of character. Nivasam, place where one should stay. Anudvayartham, about the Dvaya mantra. Gayatri artham. Shastra ujjanam, repercussions of going against Shastra. Vyasanam, bad habits. And Shashti kala, 64 arts. So these are the 16 themes which were discussed between them. And today we're going to discuss two of them. One is called Kartyartham and the second is Vyasanam. So these two themes are our point of discussion today. Okay. So let's start with the first one, the 11th one rather, but the first in our today's discussion, which is called as Kartarthyam. Kartarthyam means role of one's endeavor. So interestingly here, Sripad Ramanujacharya explains, based on this particular pastime of Sita in Ashoka Vatika, that how the devotee lives in this material world. How does the devotee live in the material world waiting for the mercy of the Lord? Because in this entire example, Lanka is the material world and Sita is representing here the conditioned soul who is caught in Lanka, right? And Hanuman is the spiritual master who is coming and giving the message of Lord Rama. So in the Sundara Kanda, which is one of the very beautiful descriptions, that's why it's called Sundara Kanda. There is this entire section of Hanuman meeting Sita Devi and giving her the message of Lord Ram. And interestingly there, Hanuman also tells Sita Devi at one point of time that why don't you come with me? I can take you, just sit on my shoulder, and just the way I jumped from there to here, I can take you and jump from here to there back again. And in a moment or very quickly, we will be in the company of Lord Rama. So this kind of an idea is proposed by Hanumanji. But Sita refuses that. Sita refuses that particular offer. There are many reasons why she refuses. Like one reason is she says is, I cannot touch another man. Ravan had kidnapped me by force, so that was a different issue altogether. But now if I sit on your back, that will be more voluntarily I'm sitting on your back, so that is not acceptable to me. And she also says that what if when you jump across the ocean, I fall down into the ocean and become food for the aquatic? Or what if the Rakshasas attack at that time? And though you are very competent to fight against them, anything could happen in such a fight. And I could be permanently separated from Ram. So many such points she makes. But however, she makes 2, 3 very important points, which Sripad Ramanujacharya talks from the perspective of the Jiva's endeavor in the material world. Okay. So we'll first go through the important verses of this particular section and then explain the meaning behind it. So Sita Devi tells Hanumanji, these 2-3 verses I'm reading, they are from the Sundarakanda, chapter number 37. Janami gamane shaktim nayane cha apite mama avasyam sampradharyashu karya siddhi ihatmanah. So she tells him, I know your capacity of carrying and taking me from here. All said and done, I know that you are very competent and you can take me. However, we have to determine soon whether the accomplishment of work by the high-souled Rama would not thus get spoiled. So that means she's saying that, see, if I sit on you and come, but then what would happen is Rama's work will get spoiled. So what is Rama's work? Ram has to come here, right? Ram has to come to Lanka and ultimately give a chance to Ravan to get rectified. Unless that happens, the story is not complete. And if Ravan is not willing to be rectified, then he has to be punished. And that's exactly what Ram does. When he comes to Lanka, he gives one chance to Ravan. He says that go today and come tomorrow, let us fight again after defeating him once. But when he's not ready to reform himself, Ram ultimately punishes Ravana. So the point here is that chance has to be given. So if I just sit on your back and come, that simply does not happen. Another thing she says is, Kamam tvam api paryapto nihantum sarva rakshasan ragavasya yasho hiyet tvaya shaste turakshasaihi. You will be surely able to kill all the demons. That is possible. But if you alone kill all the demons, Rama's celebrity will be lowered. So she's telling Hanumanji that I know that you are very competent to kill all the demons here in Lanka. But if you do that, then what about Rama's power, right? Because it is important that Lord Ram also should, one second, I have to mute everybody. Yeah, it is important that Ram should come here and fight against these demons. It's not correct if you only kill everybody. In this way, Ram's glory is actually minimized. And thus she says, Yadi Ramo Dashagrivam Ihat Hatva Sarakshasam Mamito Grishya Gacheta Satatasya Sadasham Bhavet. If Rama kills Ravan here along with his relatives and departs taking me from here, only then it would be proper for him. So basically, this is one major reason she's saying that it's not right that because Ram's mission is there that he has to come to Lanka and he has to kill the demons. If he doesn't do that, then his status is actually getting lowered by this kind of a thing. Yeah. And so it's not right that I simply sit on your back and we jump back from Lanka. So using this as a theme, Sripad Ramanujacharya, what he learned from his uncle is that the Atma, when he is over here, he doesn't have to do much endeavor. He doesn't have to bother too much about how he will go back to the spiritual world. So that is the point being made. Okay, so please try to understand this. The lesson from this particular story as taught here is that just like Sita Devi is ready to patiently wait for the Lord to come and take her away from Lanka, similarly, the devotee of the Lord in this world, he is very patient in terms of how and when the Lord will come and take him back. Okay. So taking us back to the spiritual world is the Lord's responsibility. So that is how it is described here. So just like for Sita Devi also, it was not her business to think how she will escape and go to Lanka. So what is her business? We will be discussing in the next slide as well. But it was not her thing. So that's what she's saying. I don't want to sit and like this jump. The Lord has to come and he has to take me. Okay. And then only it is proper. Then only his glory is kind of highlighted. And it's not that I have to sit on your back and jump. And there are some other verses also which are said in this context. So first thing is how is, yeah. So these verses which have only used half the verse over here in this particular slide. These half verses that I have quoted, they indicate Sita Devi's mood when she is sitting in Ashoka Vatika. First thing is Ekastu Hridayam Rupam. Ekastu Hridayam Rupam means it is said that Sita Devi, when she was sitting in Ashoka Vatika, she was thinking only of Ram. Okay, she was very focused on Ram, sitting in that Ashoka Vatika. Secondly, it is said Naisha Pashyanti Rakshasya. She was neither conscious of the beauty of Ashoka Vatika, nor was she afraid of the Rakshasi. Okay. So can you just imagine, picturize this? Sita Devi sitting in the Ashoka Vatika. And by the way, the description of Ashoka Vatika, if you hear, it looks a very scenic place. It's a very beautiful place where she was sitting. But she was not at all attracted to the beauty of those surroundings because that was all Lanka of Ravana. And neither was she too much afraid of these Rakshasis who were there. Because all these Rakshasis who were there, they were having various forms, and was having one eye, one was having a mouth in the belly, and all those descriptions are there. 1 ear, sharp, pointed. So the description of all these Rakshasis who were in Ashoka Vatika to trouble Sita Devi are very much given in the Ramayana. But it is very clear, Sita Devi says that she is not neither attracted to the beauty of the Ashoka Vatika, nor is she averse or she is fearful of these Rakshasas. Okay, so this is how the devotee spends his or her time in the material world. That means as we are doing our duties in this world, we are focused on Krishna, the goal of our life, and neither are we too much attracted to this world for enjoyment purpose, neither are we too averse to things in this world which are not very favorable, right? So there are so many things in this world which we would encounter which may not be very palatable. So neither there is attachment nor there is aversion. So this is like, if you see carefully, this is what the Bhagavad Gita also talks about. Um, Raga Dvesha Vimukta. There is neither attachment nor aversion. So that is how Sita Devi was sitting in Ashoka Vatika. And in this mood, she was thinking that Ram will surely come and I don't have to do this. Okay, in fact, it is said Ravan was actually harassing her. Right? We know that Ravan would time to time come and threaten her. Ravan would say that 10 months are over. In the next 2 months, if you don't submit to me, I'm going to cook you for breakfast and just eat you up. Okay. So Ravan was harassing her in so many ways. But Sita Devi told him that I can destroy you with a blade of grass, but Rama has not ordered me to do so. Ram has not told me to destroy you, hence I cannot do that. Asandesha to Ramasya tapascha basma basma. So there is one verse that basically says that I have not got the sandesha of Rama. I have not got this message from Rama to make you into bhasma, to burn you to ashes. I have not got that. Hence, I will not do this. Otherwise, I am not, I can easily burn you down. So basically, here again, one understands, from this again, one understands the mood of the devotee. What is the mood of the devotee? That in order to escape from this material world, we don't have to do anything other than that step number 1 and 2 that is mentioned. One is thinking about Krishna and living in this world in a mood of neither too much attachment to the objects of the world nor aversion from the unfavorable situations in the world. Okay, and thinking about Krishna. So as long, thinking about Krishna or Rama in this case, for example, as long as we are doing this, getting out of this world is considered Paramatma's responsibility. Okay, so that is what Sripad Ramanujacharya learns from his uncle in the context of this pastime. So Kartharthyam means, as you see on top, Krita Krita. Once you have given your responsibility to Paramatma, you have nothing else to do. Okay, so once we have decided to completely take shelter of the Lord, and we have decided that we will live in this world by these principles, of focusing on Krishna and neither attachment nor aversion to things in this world. If we have done these two things, then we don't have to do any third thing to get out of this world. That is now his responsibility when he will take us from here, right? It is his responsibility. So that is why it is said, one of the things that Ravarachari emphasizes is that Antima Smriti Varjanam. Antima Smriti Varjanam means this particular concept of remembering the Lord at the time of death. Okay, so this is actually said in Bhagavad Gita, right? Antakale chamameva smaran muktva kalevanam. So here Sripad Ramanujacharya makes a distinction between what is called as general bhakti yoga and a Sharanagata Bhakta. A Sharanagata Bhakta means one who is surrendered completely to the Lord through the spiritual master. Such a person is called a Sharanagata Bhakta. So he says that for the Sharanagata Bhakta, he may be able to think of Krishna at the time of death, or circumstance may be such that he may not be, right? Like sometimes we see even many great devotees, they pass away in coma, right? Or they pass away in situations where they were perhaps not even externally conscious, where they could think of Krishna. We have seen that even in recent times. Many great souls also pass away in such a state. Okay, but still there is no need to fear. The point here is, if you have lived your life like how Sita Devi lives in Ashoka Vatika. So the lesson here in Kartayartham is that we have to live in this material world with the consciousness of Sita Devi living in Ashoka Vatika. Okay, focused on Ram without attachment and aversion to the beauty of Lanka and the disturbance of Lanka. Okay, and by the way, currently in Sri Lanka there is a lot of problems, so that's a different thing. They are having. So if actually someone is today in Lanka, then they would really have to stay away from that aversion, right? Because of their economic problems and all that. Yeah, but the point is, in the material world, these things will be there only. So the idea is, once I have surrendered to the Lord, once I have done that Sharanagati, I don't have to do anything else. So the process of Antakale Chamameva, where it is mandatory to think about the Lord, is considered a part of Bhakti Yoga. But a Sharanagata Bhakta is considered kind of at a higher level, where he or she is even kind of exempted from that rule. Okay, so he doesn't have that responsibility of how he will go back to Godhead. So that is not his botheration. Okay, so I think this is a very good lesson to learn from this particular pastime, that it's not our headache about how and when we will go back to God. Okay, we just have to be focused on what we do in this world, and this is the lesson from Sita Devi in this particular context, because Sita Devi is saying that Rama should come and take me. Okay. Now another thing in this particular thing I've just quoted is a very beautiful song of Tyagaraja. So this is in Telugu, Ma Janaki Chetta Pattaga. So this is in fact, if you put this song on YouTube, Ma Janaki, you will see many big many famous Carnatic musicians have sung this song. One of my favorite, which I hear very often, is Madhuramani Iyer. He sings this particular. He passed away long back, but he has sung this song amazingly. But more importantly, I'm just focused on the meaning of this song, because the meaning of this song is related to what we just discussed today. So please look at that meaning. So Tyagaraja, as you know, he was a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra. So he is praying to Lord Ram. So just see what he's saying. He's saying, it is because you clasped the hand of our Janaki in wedlock, because you married Janaki, that you became famous. So he is telling the Lord that you have become famous because you married Sita. And in many ways that is correct, because there is a tradition that says that the Ramayana of Valmiki is actually originally called as Sitayam Charitam Mahadhar. It is considered the book about Sita Devi. That is why you will see even in that Chanakya's verse he says, right, Prata Dyuta Prasangat Madhyana Sri Prasangat. In that Madhyana Sri Prasangat, he is referring to Ramayana Sri Prasanga, about the woman. So somebody will say, Ramayana is about Ram. No, the answer is Ramayana is about Sita. It's not about Ram. So Jagaraj is praying here to Lord Ram that you have become famous because you married our Janaki. O King of Kings, let me tell you this. You owe your fame as the vanquisher of the mighty Ravana to the great good fortune having clasped the hand of Janaki. So he's telling that, you're famous as the killer of Ravan because of Janaki. Why? She accompanied you to the forest, thus obeying your command. She entrusted her real self to the care of the fire god. Okay, so that was done by her. Na? So she gave herself to the care of the fire god, lifting a shadow form of hers to be carried away by Ravan to Lanka. She did all that. There in that form, she lived under an Ashoka tree, tolerating the boastful advances of Ravana and controlling her anger, abstaining from burning him down to ashes. So she was tolerating all this. He could have burnt, but she was tolerating. Why? Because she wanted you to come to Lanka and do all this. Remember, Lord, even in that situation, she desisted just to give you credit for destroying Ravan. So Tyagaraja is telling Lord Ram that, my dear Ram, Sita Devi could have done everything herself, and indeed that is right, but she did not do that just to give you credit. So you have to understand this, oh Lord Rama, that you are famous only because of Sita Devi. Otherwise, it's nothing much. So this is a prayer. It's a beautiful song if you just meditate on this meaning and if you think about the mood over here. And this is very much connected to what we are discussing today from the Sundara Kanda, where Sita Devi is making it amply clear to all of us about how we should live in this material world. Okay, so this is lesson number 11 from the Ramayana, Sarthyarthya. The next lesson that we will discuss today, we'll discuss only two. I was going to discuss 3 or 4, but we have a short meeting on the initiation as well. So we'll just discuss just one more topic today, and then we will end the Ramayana discussion. So the 12th is called Vartanam. It's a very beautiful topic. Vartanam means character. Okay, so Vartanam means character. That means when we read Ramayana, we have to focus on the character of Lord Ram. And we have to meditate on that character. Rama is famous for his character. And we have to see how we could, how some of that character can rub on us. So we will see many verses from the Ramayana that discuss about the character of Lord Ramachandra. Okay, so first one which we are looking at is in Ayodhya Kanda. So these are some verses which are a conversation between Bharata and Kaikeyi. So the story is Bharata has just come back from his maternal uncle's place, and he sees that Dasharatha is dead, his father is no more, and he also sees or hears that Dasharatha had sent Ram to the forest for 14 years. Okay, so can you imagine? Bharat couldn't just take it. He was like wondering, how did my father ban it? Because this was told to him by Kaikeyi that your father has sent Rama to the forest for 14 years. But he simply could not comprehend how come, what did my brother do in order to be sent to the forest like this? So what is it that he did like that? So that is why he is asking many questions to Kaikeyi. So let's look at some of those questions. He's saying, Kachinna Brahmana Vadam Hritam Ramena Kashchita Kachinna Adhyo Daridraha Va Tena Apapo Vihimsitaha. Did Rama steal some wealth from some Brahman? He's asking. I hope he has not done any harm to a rich or a poor virtuous man. Someone who is very virtuous, he may be rich or poor, that's a different thing. But I hope he has not done that. Then look at then what he's saying. Kachinna paradharan va rajaputra abhimanyate tasmat dandakaranye brunaha iva vivasitaha. He says, did it happen that Ram was attached to the wife of another man? Is that the reason why he was expelled to the forest of Dandakaranya? He's asking. So these are traditionally considered reasons why one could be banished to the forest. If one steals the wealth of a Brahmana, or if he has harmed a rich man, or he has longed for another man's wife. So these kind of things are considered the reasons why you could be banished. So Kaikeyi responds to Ram. Kaikeyi gives a character certificate to Lord Ram, and that's very interesting because Kaikeyi in this particular story at this point is, at least in the story here, she's actually envious of Ram, right? She's having a lot of anger against Ram and hard feelings. That is why she was able to convince her husband and sent Ram to 14 years to the forest. But even in that situation, even Kaikeyi gives a very high character certificate to Ram. So Kaikeyi says, "Na brahmana dhanam kinche ritam ramena kaschita kaschannadhyo daridrava tena apapo vihimsitah nirama paradharamscha chakshurбhyam api pashyati." The last line is very important. Nirama paradharamscha chakshurбhyam api pashyati. So the meaning is very simple in Sanskrit. It is saying that Rama Paradhara, that means that another's wife, Chakshurбhyam api pashyati. Even he doesn't, his eyes also don't move in that direction. That, oh, this woman is, very beautiful. So maybe I could take her or I should have married her. He will not, his eyes also do not think like that. Okay, so that means he doesn't even, when the verse says eyes, what it means is even in the mind that thought doesn't come that I need this particular woman. So this is the character that we are talking about. So this is the character. Na Rama Paradaramsta Chakshurбhyam api pashyati. So this has been highlighted a lot about character, that one should have this type of character. And it is apt to tell here that even Ramavacharya, who heard all this from his uncle, even he had an amazing, a very high character. Because we see that he was attempted to be killed by Yadav Prakash. You know the story, right? Yadav Prakash actually was planning to kill him, but he bore no malice against him later. He never thought too negative about Yadav Prakash, though he had tried to kill him. In fact, he accepted Yadav Prakash as a disciple also later. So this is character, where on a personal level, somebody does something to you, you are ready to just put that aside and forget everything negative that that person did, especially, right? Like in this case, we see Ramanujacharya dealing with Yadav Prakash. Coming back to the Ramayana, there are several other verses that are in the Ramayana in different places, but mainly in the Ayodhya Khand, that describe his character. So let's read some of them. Sachanityam prashantatma mrudupurvam tu bhashate Uchamanopi Purusham Notaram Pratipadyate. It is said Rama was always peaceful in mind and spoke softly. He did not react even to the hard words spoken by others. So that means he was always peaceful in mind. So for each of these, there are stories in the Ramayana that talk about it. So for example, it is said that when Rama got this message, so it is said on the day of his coronation, which was the supposed coronation, Rama had was ready for his coronation, because on that morning itself he comes to know, right, that he has to go to the forest. Can you imagine? Somebody has been told that he's going to be coronated in a few hours and he's getting ready, dressed up completely, and then he gets a message from Sumantara that you have to go to your father and meet him in Kaikeyi's chamber. And when he goes there and he hears this particular point that he is supposed to go to the forest for 14 years, it is said that there was no vikar on his face and mind. That means there was nothing like, oh, shah, I was thinking that I will become king today and suddenly I have to go to the forest. So that's what it means by saying that very peaceful in mind. That means his mind was not shaken by anything that happened. Neither he reacted to the harsh words spoken by others. Like Kaikeyi and all spoke harshly in that context, but he did not react at all. On a personal level, he had nothing. So like this. Look at the other one. Katanchitupakareణ krite naikena
Krishna,
tushyati.
your voice is breaking, bro.
Okay, I'll just try to off my video maybe. Okay, I'll just off my video, so sometimes maybe that is because of that. The voice would be better. Okay, so let's try this. Look at this one. Katanchit upakarena krite naikena tushyati na smaratyupakaranam shatamapyatmavattaya. This is again a very beautiful verse, and there is a story for this as well. That Rama, because of his good bent of mind, feels glad even by whatever way a good thing is done to him. He does not remember any number of bad things done to him. So this is Rama's characteristic. That even if something good is done, he remembers that, but any number of bad things done, he's ready to forget it. So there are stories again for each of these. The story for this is that crow Jayanta. So the crow Jayanta, which had tried to attack Sita Devi, was forgiven by Ram, and one of the reasons it is said that Ram was ready to forgive him, though he deserved death penalty, was because he remembered the fact that this crow is the son of Indra, and Indra had once upon a time taken the form of a bull, and Ram's great one ancestor, whose name was Puranjaya, sat on that bull and fought against the demons. So Lord Ram remembered the good thing done by Indra to his ancestor several generations ago, and was ready to put aside whatever wrong his son had done. He was ready to put aside that. So like this, for each of these points here about Lord Rama's character, there are stories in the Ramayana from which we can understand how this particular character was exemplified. Look at the next one. Shila vriddhair, jnana vriddhair, vayo vriddhaisya sajjanehi, kathayanasthavai nityam astra yogyantareshvapi. Whenever he finds some time, even while practicing archery, Ram used to converse with elderly people, elder by way of conduct or wisdom or age. So look at that. From the Sanskrit, you can understand. Shila vriddhe. Shila means by conduct. Jnana vriddhe, wisdom. Vayo vriddhe, by age. Okay, so these three people are always to be respected. So this is something again we understand. That means whenever we meet elderly people, who are either elder in conduct, in behavior, in knowledge, or in age, one has to converse with them very nicely. And one has to be very civil. One has to be in a very receptive mode with such people. So this was Ram's character. And this is again seen when Ram and Sita and Lakshman were in the Dandakaranya forest. They never missed an opportunity to meet a sage, a rishi who was in the forest, and hear good instructions from them. Correct? He always looked forward to hear from such people. Even when Lord Ram was with Vishwamitra, that's a fascinating story. When Vishwamitra takes Ram and Lakshman to the forest to kill Tataka, at least there are 10 stories narrated by Vishwamitra to Ram. And Ram hears each story with great attention. And amazing stories. The story of Ganga, right? That entire story, Trishanku's story, so many stories he's telling. And Rama was very eager to hear from such people. So this is character. So from this we can understand how we should be in this world. We cannot simply say that, oh, Ram is Supreme Personality of Godhead, so he had all this. We are not. Okay, so we may not be able to do the way he did completely, but still we are expected to follow these kind of character in our life. Look at some other verses of Ram which depict his character. He was a wise man, Buddhiman, it is said. Madhura Bashi, he would speak sweetly. And this is very interesting when I thought about it. Purva Bashi Priyam Vadaha, it is said. Purva Bashi means he was the first man to initiate a talk. So it is being said here that when you meet somebody, to be the first person to initiate a talk, that's considered part of kind of noble character. So especially when you meet someone senior or whatever. This verse actually comes after the previous verse that we read. Initiating a talk is also considered, part of good character. Otherwise, there's nobody to speak. Then his speech was very compassionate. Viryavan cha viryena mahata svena vismitaha. And he was never arrogant of his mighty valor, not being arrogant of his capability. So these are all part of his character. He did not speak untruth. He was all knowing. He used to be receptive and worshipful to elders. People used to love him, and he used to love the people. So a general feeling of love towards the people was also part of Ram's character. Sanukrosho Chitakrodo, having compassion, conquering anger, Chitakrodo, used to be receptive and worshipful to the wise. Brahmana Pratipujakaha. So to the Brahmanas, he was very, very receptive. And this you see in every story, especially with Vashishta, Vamadeva, with so many people. Mercy towards the meek. He knew what had to be done, clean in conduct. So these are all characters of Lord Ramachandra. Kulochitta Matikshatram Dharmaswam Bahumanyate Manyate Paraya Kirtya Mahatsvarga Phalam Tataha. That Rama, having an attitude suitable for his rank, giving due respect of righteousness of the warrior class, the Kshatriyas, believed that by following the righteousness he would attain great fame and through it the fruit of heaven. So basically, he acted in such a way that automatically fame and heaven, Swarga, was always open to him. So that is also considered part of character. That means to act in such a manner that one has fame and also heaven. So if you see, somebody may say, why fame? But it is considered that it is important to protect one's name in the world also. That's why you see in the Bhagavad Gita, in the second chapter, between verse 31 to 38, where Krishna is telling Arjuna, Krishna is saying that, hey, listen, if you fight and you win the kingdom, you will get fame in this world and you will get heaven. On the other hand, if you don't fight, then it will be sin not to fight, not to do your Kshatriya duty. And also, everybody will call you ill names. People will akirti. Ill fame will come to you. So basically, Krishna is telling Arjuna, if you fight, you will get fame. And if you don't fight, it's not that somebody may say, okay, if I don't fight, then only thing I don't get is I will not get fame. No, it's not like that. You will get ill name. Okay. So it's like both ways, right? So if you fight, you're going to get a great amount of fame. But if you don't fight, then it's not that you can say, okay, I didn't get fame, so that's okay. No, you will be criticized. People are going to say that you simply were a coward and you ran away from the battlefield. So this is what Krishna is telling Arjuna, correct? So from this we basically understand that fame, to get fame and to protect oneself from ill name, both are considered very important. That's why we see in the Shastra and even with Acharyas also examples like these, where everyone tries their best to protect their name, because the name which is there, the fame, it is because that fame actually becomes a tool for service in the world for everybody. Correct? So it is very important to protect one's name and not simply take any kind of blemish on one's character. Look at the next one. Na shreyasi rato vidwan viruddha kata ruchihi. Rama was not interested in actions which were not beneficial. He was a scholar. He had no taste in tales opposing righteousness. He would never hear any story which was against dharma. His vakta vachaspatir yata, and his eloquent speech, like a vachaspati, his eloquent speech contained a series of strategies for action. You can see the way he would speak to people. Like, for example, last time, if you remember, we spoke about how when Vibhishan comes to Ram, how he's speaking to all the monkeys, how he's so eloquently convincing Sugriv. Because Sugriv is telling Ram, if you remember, we discussed this point. Sugriv is telling Ram that Vibhishan is not a good brother. So Ram wants to very nicely tell him that, see, we cannot simply point fingers like that. Because actually Sugriv was also not a great brother. Actually, he wasn't a great brother, right? He had a lot of problems with Bali. But Ram did not want to say that. So what does Ram say? Ram says that every brother is not like Bharata. Every son is not like me, and every friend is not like you, Sugriv. So Sugriv, imagine, on one side he understands that, oh, Ram treats me as a great friend. But at the same time, Sugriv understands that Bharat was the best brother. Okay. And in this way, he is so refined in his speech. So this is all considered part of character. Okay, how you live in this world, how you speak. Look at the next one. Arogas taruno vagmi. That means Ram did not have diseases. That means to protect your body from falling prey to diseases is also considered an important part of character. Very interesting. One may think that, Are, how come falling ill is not in my hand? No, it's not like that. So if you work towards it, it's possible, right? Like recently we saw that 125-year-old person, right, who received Padma Shri. He is, I'm sure all of us saw the video of him accepting the Padma Shri award from the President of India. He's a Gaudiya Vaishnava. He was from some place in present day Bangladesh. Later, he came to Navadvip in his life and he met a guru and took initiation from him. And later, he has been engaged in his social activities, social welfare activities in so many years, taking care of leprosy people and all that. And if you see him walking and offering obeisances, we actually feel ashamed. At less than half his age, most of us cannot do panchang so quickly the way he does it. Okay, so trying to live in this world without any diseases is considered part of good character. Wagmi, good speaker, we already discussed that. He had a good body. Deshakalavid, Taruno, Loke Purusha Sarajnya. He knew time and place. He knew the situation. He could grasp the essence of men. Look at that. Sara, to understand the essence of things. That's why when he understood that people in Ayodhya are speaking ill about Sita, he could pick that pulse. See, this is what is happening. He was the one gentleman born on earth. So these are characters of Lord Rama. Okay, so there are so many more, but this is the last set of slides. Last slide we are seeing today. Uh, Look at this one. After completing his education properly, Ram, after knowing the Veda along with the Vedangas, became better than his father in the use of bow and arrows. Look at that. Pitu Shrestha Babuva Bharatagrajaha. He became better than his father in the use of bow and arrows. So that means, so this is also considered part of character. I remember attending this education program we had from Indumati many years ago. So she would make this concept. It was a Gujarati saying, but she would say that Savaya. Savaya means, she would say Sava means 1.25. So she would say that it is your duty to ensure that your next generation is 1.25 times better than you in all aspects. In aspect of dharma, artha, kama, moksha, in every aspect of life, your next generation should be 1.25 times better than you. So this is considered apparently a traditional idea in India where you produce offspring as a contribution to the world who are better than you in religion, in all aspects of dharma and contribution to the world, spirituality, everything included. So similarly, here we see Rama was better than his father in the use of bow and arrows. So that is considered character. That's considered like a success. It's considered success for Dasharatha to have had such a son, and it is considered success of Rama also to become like that. Nibrita Samvritakaro Gupta Mantra Sahayavan. He was humble. He did not let his feelings appear outwardly. So this is also very important. So it's not that all your feelings are coming out very easily. He kept his thoughts to himself. He was also a king, right? He helped others. His anger and pleasure were not wasteful. Amoga Krodha Harsha. So that means when he became angry, there was some result as a consequence of that. Like he becomes angry with Samudra Devata, and that Samudra Devata actually comes over there. Not that he just becomes angry and then there is no effect only of that anger. So anything that he does, there is a purpose in it. He knew when to give and when not to give. Tyaga Sanyama Kalavit. Dhrida Bhakti Sthita Prajno. He had firm devotion and a steadfast mind. Nasadrahi na durvachaha. He was not stubborn, nor did he speak evil words. Nirasandra pramastascha. He was free from idleness. That means there was there was nothing like he's just sitting idle and wasting his time. He was always alert. Swadosha paradosha. He recognized his own errors and those of others. So there are so many verses like this in the Ramayana, if you carefully go through, which talk about the Vartanam, the character of Lord Ram. And the purpose of these verses are for all of us to meditate upon and see how much we could imbibe such character of Lord Ram in our own life. Okay, so this is with this I'll
Hare
stop the
Krishna, the sound is
yeah.
breaking, voice is breaking. Vijay.
Okay, sorry. Radhe. Yeah, Hare Krishna. Sorry for that. I think I have some issues with my internet. Okay, so we are ending with this verse from Brahmanda Puran. वैदेही सहितं सूरद्रुमतले हेमे महामण्डपे मध्ये पुष्करमासने मणिमये वीरासने सुष्ठितम् अग्रे वाचयति प्रपञ्चनसुते तत्त्वं मुनिभ्यः परं व्याख्यान्तं भरतादिभिः परिवृजं रामं भजे श्यामलम्. This is Dhyana Shloka about the meditation of Lord Ram, how Rama is sitting with Vaidehi, accompanied by Bharata, Lakshman, Shatrughna, Hanuman, and all the rishis. Hare Krishna. So, any questions or comments on whatever we discussed today?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Can you hear, Prabhu?
Yeah, I can. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhu. So, Prabhu, like I had 2 points. Like one is the so when Lord Ram says that there is no brother like Bharat, there is no son like me, and then one more thing, right? So, what does he mean?
There is no friend like you. There is no friend like you, Sugriv.
Yeah. So, what does he mean when he says there is no son like me?
Yeah, because no son like him means he wants to also say that it is a wrong expectation to have that sons would be so obedient to their father like Ram was to Dasharath. Ram was extremely obedient to Dasharath, right? Dasharath simply had to express. Dasharath did not even say that you have to go to the forest. The moment he understood that his father is in a dharma sankat, he is caught in this duvida, he immediately walked off to the forest. So Ram wants to indicate that in future, no father or son should think that this kind of example could be repeated by anybody. It's very difficult. So that's why he makes it. He doesn't want to put any pressure on anyone. So he's saying outright that no son like me. I mean, nobody would be there in future also who would think like how I did to the son.
Okay. And Prabhu, the other thing was, so initiating a conversation, you said is a sign of character, right? So
yeah, it is said here that Purva Bhashita, that means that verse that we saw, that means when you meet somebody, sometimes you meet someone and then there is nobody who starts a conversation. In fact, it has seen that, right? An ability to start a meaningful conversation is very much appreciated in social circles. Like you are sitting in a meeting, it may be office, it may be devotees, it may be anywhere, family, to be able to start a conversation, and that also something meaningful, because that also we saw in other verses, right? Ram would never say or do anything which didn't have any purpose. So that is considered a good character.
but then on the other hand, like if someone is very, like, I mean, it may be that a junior goes in front of a senior devotee or whatever, it may be office, and then, just every time initiates a conversation. Actually, I think it's I don't know, my understanding was it's the other way around, that the elder or the senior is supposed to initiate the conversation.
No, actually, this verse, that specific verse that I took out from the Ramayana, that comes immediately after the verse where it is said how Rama behaves with Shila Vriddha Vayo Vriddha. That means when you go to people senior, you have to seek something from them, right? You have to ask, you have to start talk. Otherwise, nothing may come out of them. Just like we see, you go in front of a great soul, only when you speak something or you ask something, you initiate a discussion, something comes out of them. Otherwise, if everybody keeps quiet, then maybe sometimes even the great souls don't speak anything out. Are you getting in that sense?
Okay. My understanding was the great souls, normally they speak first, and then if there are some then we or somebody else we initiate we talk
Actually, most of the teaching, if you see, it is considered in Shastra one-on-one. That means you ask and then you get answer. It's more like that. This whole thing of katha, where just one person keeps speaking, that is considered, only suitable in katha kind of format. But otherwise, generally, if you see most Shastra, Puranas, everything, like even if you see the Bhagavad Puran, Parikshit Maharaj is asking questions not to Shukadeva Goswami. Then only things are coming out. Arjuna also is asking something to Krishna. Had he not said anything, nothing would come. If you see most of the important conversations in our Shastra, they are all in question answer format only. Where something comes out from the junior first. He is seeking something. Only then the great person responds. If you don't say anything, nothing comes out. Like sometimes I'll tell you some practical example of this. Like we also have observed, right? If you are attending some senior Maharaj's program or something, we see that if there are some senior devotees sitting and they ask very good questions, then some nice answer comes out of it. Have you noticed it?
Yeah.
You understood my point,
yes,
right?
Prabhu.
Yeah. Do you agree with this or
Yeah.
not? Like sometimes we see that with some great Maharaj or someone, when there are some senior devotees who sit and who ask very good questions, then only the nectar starts flowing, right? Otherwise, nobody asks anything, then the class just ends, like there's nothing.
Yeah. So exactly. I mean, it's kind of like same thing so if you have a senior devotee sitting in front of you, then you probably allow him to ask the question rather than talking ourselves. So
Yeah. But again, if you see, most of the learning happens one-on-one. So if you see Rama with Vishwamitra, with the sages in Dandakaranya, it's all like one-on-one learning most of the time. And that's another characteristic. Not so much where there are too many people sitting like that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Anyone else with any other question or comment?
Prabhuji, Dandvat Pranam, Vaibhavananda sir.
Dandavad.
Prabhuji, you know how this maintenance of health is a good factor. We know that, one who maintains one health, he is considered very good. People appreciate it. But, how it is, more linked with character.
One thing is that disease is not only seen as a physical problem. Disease is also seen as a result of the mind, right? Many times it's either a result of the mind, unhealthy living, and so on. So basically, it is included in Ram's character. In fact, the chapter that I was reading now, it is Ayodhya Kand chapter 1. If you read that, one chapter is specifically about Ram's character. It glorifies aspects of his character. And you will see this verse where it says he was healthy and he never had diseases. So from that, you understand that to take care of your health properly and to maintain it nicely is considered part of good character. Because then only you will contribute, right, in the world. A diseased person, diseased body, diseased mind means the contribution also is immediately affected. You will not be able to contribute in the world. So one has to be healthy. It is considered dharma to protect one's body. It's considered like that. So that's why it has been included as part of good character. Yeah, even I was surprised when I saw that verse. I was thinking, how come maintaining health and maintaining good body? It is also said that Ram had a good body. Okay.
Yeah. Prabhuji, which chapter it is? Chapter number can you name?
Ayodhya Kand chapter 1 I was reading. Ayodhya Kand chapter 1. The full chapter is about Ram's character. But there are many other verses also from other places that I took. Some of the other verses of other places. But that chapter has most of the good things that I pointed out.
Okay. And Puji, I think we can include this in value education also. We teach so many things in value education. I think this is the best value education.
Yeah, certainly. Anyone else with any other comment?
Yes. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Nitin sir, not Dandvat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Yeah, please go
Prabhuji,
ahead.
the shlokas which are you referring are from the Valmiki Ramayana?
Yeah, of course.
about the character of Ram.
Yeah. All the
Okay.
verses that I have been referring throughout in this Ramayana series, if you noted, they had that 5 point, 2 point, like that. That means 5 means Sundarakanda,
Yes.
2 means chapter 2, verse number. For most of the verses, I had given reference. Some I may have not given, but most of it I had given. I would search from the Valmiki Ramayana and then copy that verse.
Hmm. And probably one more point that again and again our theme come of the contribution, contributing to the world, but there are certain statements of Prabhupada, they cannot be taken in the isolation also, that they, the world will remain like that and we not need to contribute and we have to just concentrate on going back home, back to Godhead. So how to take it positively, both the points?
See, yeah, now see, you have answered your point. See, sometimes to emphasize one point in a particular context, they may have said that. So, for example, if you go back to Saraswati Thakur's statement also to Prabhupada, we are celebrating 100th year of that, right? Where Saraswati Thakur said, what is the use of this political situation will keep coming and going. So the ultimate thing is self-realization. Okay. Certainly, self-realization is absolutely important, paramount, everything. Okay, but see, you cannot compare the two. See, that is, if you start comparing the two, then there is a problem. That means if you compare self-realization with political situation in the world, political situation in the world is so tiny in front of self-realization, right? So you cannot bring the two on the table together. That political situation has its own importance, validity, and self-realization is something totally different. I mean, it's so important if you look at it from the goal of human life. You can't bring the two together. So that is the real point. So I would see Saraswati Thakur's objection to Srila Prabhupada in the context that when he told him about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message, he raised the objection that we are independent, we are dependent. So that means bringing political situation and then saying that I cannot practice self-realization. This is not acceptable at all, because self-realization is so important. It's the ultimate goal. But again, if you but to think because of that statement that the political situation has no importance at all completely, that would be a problem. You understood my point, right? When you compare two things, then yes, you understand that something is so much more important than the other. But the other thing has its own value, right? It's like it's like saying that the temple room, the deities in my house and the altar in my house is much more important than the toilet in my house. Certainly, I mean, how can I compare these two? The altar is so sacred; it is the center part of my house. But at the same, so if you compare I mean, I'm sorry to bring such a comparison, but if you compare the toilet and the altar in the sense of importance or something, then altar is obviously significantly, that is the goal of our life and everything. So that becomes, but at the same time, toilet has its own importance. As in, if that is not there, then you can't do your morning duties properly. Correct. So like that political situation, the world situation has its own importance. Right? If you're sitting in Afghanistan or modern day Pakistan today, you cannot even sit and discuss all this. So that has its own set of importance.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, is the comparison done in this way, or what I am thinking is done in the terms of the time spent on both the things, maybe discussing about them, working on them. So I thought it that way.
I was thinking in this way, that when Saraswati Thakur told Prabhupada about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message, he raised the objection in terms of India being dependent. So that you can never raise, right? Even if India is dependent on the British, Mahaprabhu's message is, how can you say that is not relevant at that time? Are you getting it? If you raise that objection, then that's the answer that you would get, that this is so important, this cannot wait for anything, and that's what he told him. Okay. But again, we need to remember, had the British stayed on for another 100 years, they would have finished everything. Nothing would be there for us to practice. There would be no legacy at all left. So that has its own set of importance. That's a totally different thing. The point is, you can't bring both at the same level of comparison. Like, that's why I gave a
Prabhuji, and this thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Please
please go
continue.
ahead.
Yes, please. Pooja, I was telling this question which Vavan through us. So I was also thinking that in previous times, people used to be fit only doing yoga, and so when one is doing yoga and pranayam, he will automatically be in mode of goodness only. So then he will automatically have a good character. Can we link it this way?
Yeah, certainly. It's like, see, having now, let's not take that point about important health and body to such an extent that, like even the film stars you will see in the film industry, they have a good body, right? They have all that
No,
six
but that
pack
is
abs and all
artificial.
that. And
That is
that's what.
artificial. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can't take it to such an exclusive point, forgetting everything else. You have to see that verse in among everything. See, imagine if Ram has everything, but is always a diseased person who's unhealthy. What is the use of it? Can you hypothetically just imagine? Suppose in the description of Lord Ram's character, everything else is nicely there, right? But he is always having diseases and is not at all healthy. Then that itself becomes a black spot, right? Because then you are unable to function. So in the context of that whole thing, you'll have to see that point. If everything else is there, the health also should be there.
Okay. Vijay, I had one question that when Prabhupada says this thing that he told to his foreign disciples that my disciples are not afraid of Maya, and you were telling that we should not be fearful, and how to understand both things.
No, I didn't understand. We should not be fearful in which context I said?
You were telling about Sita, na?
No. I was saying that Sita was not averse to the unfavorable things in Lanka. Please try to understand. In Lanka, there were attractive things like the beauty of Ashoka Vatika, and there were very horrible, nasty looking things like all those Rakshasas. Correct? Sita was not attached to the beauty of Lanka, nor was she averse to the disfigure of the Rakshasas. So attachment, aversion, that is not, I never said fearful of Maya. That's not the point. Attachment and aversion should not be there in the word. Like Krishna says, right? Raga, Dvesha, Vimukta. Raga and Dvesha. Both have to be absent. That means you are not too much obsessed to the things of the world, neither are you averse to it. Aversion is there, na? Like, oh, this I don't like at all. No, it's not like that. I mean, it's not about whether you like or not like. World is going to be like that.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah. Haripa. Okay, so shall we end this particular discussion at this point? I will just